Jack here, owner of Hockey Alley, bringing you back hockey history. Today I got Dennis Polonich, NHL player from the Detroit Red Wings. How are you, Dennis?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on. How many years did you play in the NHL?
I played a total of 14 years pro. I was 12 years with the Red Wings, never traded, and then I finished the last couple of years in Muskegon, Michigan, in the IHL, and we ended up winning a championship there. Rick Lee was the coach.
Yeah, it was a Hartford Whalers
Yeah, defenseman. Yeah.
defenseman. That's right. Yeah, that's awesome. And you played in the Olympia Stadium, right? Original.
Yeah, I spent about 8 years out of my 12 years with him. I spent about 8 years in Detroit. Played. I was fortunate enough to play in the Olympia. Then we moved to Joe Louis. I played in Joe Louis, and now, if there's ever an alumni event, I'd love to play in the Little Caesars Arena, and then I'd be one of the few people that played in all three arenas.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I've seen pictures of the Olympia and Joe Louis. I was only on the outside, never went in, but it's a lot of history, hockey history there.
Yeah, it was a small ice surface with oval corners, and my style of game, feisty and a lot of hard hitting. It was good for my style of play for on the forecheck.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did you ever run into Gordie Howe at all in Detroit?
Actually, the year that I signed with Detroit, 73-74, I believe was the year that he went to Hartford. He signed, the family signed in Hartford in the WHA, and then the WHA uh, joined the NHL. They became the Hartford Whalers of the NHL, and I faced off against them at Joe Louis Arena, one of the first and only times you'll ever see a father and two sons on the same line. I took the opening face-off against him, and yes, I ran into him and spoke with him a few times. And one day, my father-in-law from Saskatchewan was in Detroit, and they had the All-Star game. And I asked him, I said, Gordy, would you mind if I brought my father-in-law here to say hello? Oh, yeah, bring him over.
Nice.
So they shook hands, and Gordy had a firm handshake, and my father-in-law was a farmer who picked rocks by hand and milked cows, and he shook Gordy's hand, and Gordy jumped back. He says, "Oh my God!" He says, "How many milkers you got back home?" And anyways, they spoke for a good 15 minutes, and that was my father-in-law's highlight.
Wow. Yeah, that was awesome.
He was an awesome man. It seemed like he just had time for everybody.
Yeah, for you to be there, hockey history with him playing with his sons, that was a big deal back then. And
it was. There's a picture from that circulates. I believe it might even be in the Hall of Fame. Somebody took from the press box, and it's pretty neat.
That's great. And then you had Alex Del Vecchio as your coach in Detroit, and that was one of his line mates, Gordie Howe's line mates.
Yes, Alex was obviously, he was just on the tail end of his career when I got there, but he stayed in the organization as coach and general manager, and that, what a class act. And just coincidentally, he has the same birthday as me, December 4th.
Oh.
So just this past a few weeks ago, I got his phone number from Al Coates.
Yes.
And Al Coates was kind enough to give me his number, and I phoned Alex and wished him happy birthday, and that really made his day.
That's awesome. Wow. And to hear all the hockey history he had to say, it was a lot, probably.
Well, there's so much tradition in that in that organization. When I was a kid, went there as a 19, 20-year-old to training camp, and that it was amazing.
Yeah. What year did you know when you went your first year? Were you drafted by them?
I was drafted. I played junior in Flin Flon, Flin Flon Bombers, and I got drafted by Detroit in the 8th round, 116th overall. signed a 3-year contract and went to training camp. And I went to training camp as a centerman, and they had, as you said, Alex Delvecchio, Red Berenson, and Marcel Dion. Back then, they only had 3 lines, only dressed 3 lines. Well, there was no way I was going to make that team in front of those guys. So, put in a year and a half, couple of years in the minors, and finally made it.
Yeah. Did they expect you to go in and be fighting a lot, or were you? Did they just let you play your game?
I think when people seen me come onto the ice, they didn't because of my stature, 5'5", or whatever. They didn't fathom the tenacity and the feistiness and the ferociousness. Like I was, I had to be an ultra competitor, otherwise I wouldn't have lasted.
Yeah, it was hockey was tough back then too, not
It
like
was, yes, it was. Every team had, a half a dozen, tough guys.
today. Yeah, and then your other coach was Ted Lindsay, Terrible Ted, they called him.
Well, I had a lot of coaches, Jack.
Oh,
Sadly, Detroit was in a bit of a tailspin there with Bruce Norris, the owner. And, I think I went through 11 coaches in 8 years.
wow.
Ted Garvin, like you said, Alex Delvecchio, Ted Lindsay, Billy Day, Nick Polano, Wayne Maxner. Just went on and on. Marcel Pronovo. So there was no stability and luck. I was lucky enough to survive. All the changes, and
That's a lot of changes. I mean,
it is.
too many. Wow.
When I look back now, it's tough to win in that environment.
Yeah, definitely. And then you were playing also against Bobby Orr. How was that to play against Bobby Orr?
Well, when when I first seen those guys come on the ice, I was in awe because I grew up watching Hockey Night in Canada and idolized those gentlemen. And I have a little funny story. I believe I took the last major penalty with Bobby Orr in his career. He was with Chicago Blackhawks at that time, and that was kind of sad seeing him in a Blackhawks uniform. But we played in the Olympia, and I kind of hit him in one corner, and the play went in the other corner, and he hit me back, and then the puck went up the ice, and him and I started jawing, and we dropped our gloves, and we didn't actually fight. We had roughing penalties or whatever. We went to the penalty box, and his picture was on the program that night in Detroit Olympia. So the people were coming down, and he was signing the cover of the program for him. And I thought to myself, oh, God, Bobby, I wish I could get you to sign one for me.
Oh, yeah, absolute legend. Absolute legend.
Yes.
That's an awesome story.
When you look at his numbers, when you look at the games he played and the points he got, can you imagine if he was healthy?
Yeah.
What he'd done in 15 years instead of 600 games.
Yeah, and he changed that position. The way he played defense completely changed the way defensemen play, which is amazing.
Yeah, one of the few guys that were able to revolutionize the game. Him and Wayne Gretzky and.
Yeah. And you saw a lot of guys with no helmets back then. I mean, there was not as much head injuries as and what would you think that would be? I mean,
it was. Well, the game was slower back then. We trained, but we didn't have personal trainers and dietitians, and the game is so much faster, and the players are a lot more athletic now. I'm not saying that they have more character or more personality, probably not, but they're certainly better conditioned.
Yeah. On my channel, I talk a lot about hockey sticks, the history of hockey sticks. What kind of hockey sticks did you use when you played?
Well, again, I wasn't a superstar, so I didn't have the luxury of ordering personalized sticks. Back in those days, we used whatever they gave us, and then you modified it. You came to the rink early in the morning or before practice and took out the torch or stuck it in the hot water and softened it up and bent the blade, and but I believe in all my career, I had one endorsement, and that was from Louisville Slugger hockey sticks.
Mm-hmm.
I had a choice. I could take a pool table, $500 cash, or a set of golf clubs. I took a set of Power Built golf clubs as payment for using their sticks.
Oh,
But
nice.
I used Sherwood sticks, Coho sticks, Louisville Slugger sticks. There was no, and they were all wood. There was no composite sticks back then.
Yeah, and so a lot of players didn't have their own patterns, even in the NHL.
Oh, exactly.
Wow.
Unless you were a high end player,
Mm-hmm.
a scorer, then they went out of their way to customize a stick for you.
And was there a limit of how many you can have in a season back then, or unlimited?
Well, again, the trainers kind of monitored that,
Uh
and
huh.
when you're bin or when you were getting low, they would order you another dozen.
Oh, I see. Wow, it's very very different now. It's
Oh
completely
yes,
wow. Yeah.
and we if you had a stick and you liked it, you didn't give it away.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And any of the teammates were picky about their equipment? Did you have seen anything that was people
Yes,
complaining?
yeah, everybody had their little nuances. I remember Wayne Bianchen was. I played junior with him, and I didn't play with him in Detroit, but I played junior against with him, and he was a goal scorer, and he was very finicky. And one day we took a saw, and right where the wrapper was, we took the wrapper off, and we cut the stick about halfway, and then we pasted the wrapper back on. So we went out on the ice and took one hard pass, and the stick broke, and he was devastated because it was one of his favorite sticks.
Oh no. It's a prank, obviously.
Oh
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. It's a long season. You got to have some fun.
yes, you got to keep it loose.
Yeah, exactly. And did you have any superstitions before the game or during the game
Not
or
my,
anything?
not really
No.
superstitions, but you know, if you had a good game, you tried to go through the same routine. I would eat early, uh, go wash my car in the driveway or whatever, and then lay down, for an hour or hour and a half or whatever. And I'm sure guys use the same route coming to the arena, and
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, that's a. It's a lot of people have it's a routines. Everybody, I had those when I played.
Yeah, well, in life you have
Yeah,
routines as well.
yeah, that's true. It's the way it is. Which players did you idolize growing up?
Well, I liked Marcel Dion. He was a few years ahead of me, and,
Hmm.
and I played in Flin Flon, and I idolized Bobby Clark.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
because once I got to Flin Flon, I watched him play on TV, and then once I got to Flin Flon, he was from there. The stories and stuff. So yeah, those guys, and like you said, Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe.
yeah,
Um, yeah, those were my idols.
yeah. Those are great idols to have.
Yes, and I went to hockey school when I was like 14 years old, 13 or 14 years old,
Hmm.
and Red Berenson was one of the instructors there. And
Wow,
lo and behold, 4 or 5 years later, I go to Detroit, and there's Red Berenson
wow.
on the yeah. So that was pretty.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any great moments that you recall in your career or that you saw?
Not that I saw, but when they named me captain
Hmm.
of the Red Wings, Larry Wilson named me captain of the Red Wings in '76 for a couple of years. That was it was a very emotional, touching
Yeah.
moment. And again, just skating on Maple Leaf Gardens, Boston
Yeah.
Garden, Montreal Forum. Uh, those were moments that you'll never ever forget.
Yeah. I wish they would keep those buildings around. I mean, instead of all this new corporate and everything, I like the traditional buildings. Kind
Yes,
of.
it's so different now.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a business.
It's a shame because it ruins
Yeah,
the hockey and like,
yeah.
yeah. Did you ever get to keep any of your jerseys that you wore?
Yes, I've had. I still have a couple.
Uh-huh.
I have
Nice.
two daughters, and the son-in-laws will each get one, and a few. They don't want a lot of stuff, but I'll certainly give them a few mementos.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are good
But
memories.
again, like back in when I played in the '70s, there was only two sets of jerseys: a red one and a white one. Nowadays, they have the retro jerseys and the
Yeah.
uh, so the players have access to those. But but we only had two sets of jerseys, and those jerseys were used year after year.
It's completely different now. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything. For the people that collect game worn jerseys, it kind of ruined the market for them. Yeah. And you mentioned you kind of dropped the gloves with Bobby or anybody else that you fought that you.
Oh, I had numerous. I didn't look, but I think I had like over 100
Wow.
major penalties in my career. But yeah, the guys like Dave Schultz and Terry O'Reilly and Stan Jonathan and
Wow.
Moose DuPont and yeah, there's too many to remember, and sadly, back in those days, there is some footage, there is some footage you can find on if you Google it, but yeah, there wasn't
Not much.
cell phones weren't common back then.
No. And any tough ones that you remember? Any tough
Well,
fights, or were they?
no, there were because of my size. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I was always the underdog. But another funny story is I played in Flin Flon, and we had a tough team. We had Blaine Stout and Wayne Bianch and Jack McElhardy, Gary Howitt, myself, and Gary Howitt and I grew up playing junior together. And then when he made the Islanders and I made the Red Wings, uh, I had dinner at his house
Yeah.
night before the game, and then we went out and played, and we ended up getting in the fight. I must have made a comment about his wife's cooking or something.
Yeah, but it was more like a job. It wasn't that you took it personally against somebody. People that have to understand
Yeah,
out there, it was just part of the game.
It was certainly a job, and
Yeah.
now as you get older and you go to alumni events, you run into these players, and there's on the most part there's a mutual respect.
Yes. Yeah. It's you weren't. Did you have to ever jump in to protect anybody that got hit? Say your goalie got hit or something. Did that ever happen? Were
Oh,
you right?
yeah, I'm
Many,
sure many
many
times.
times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a good teammate. I had other guys back, and that's the way I
That's
grew
good.
up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else happened that's funny over the years that you recall?
Well, not necessarily funny, but I'm sure you heard or you recalled the stick swinging incident that I had with Wilf Paymont when he was with Colorado Rockies, and he took a baseball swing at my face and shattered my nose, and
Oh,
yeah, and I ended up going to court, taking him to court. One of the few players, that has ever sued another player, but I was out for 3 months, and
oh
my
man.
career kind of went downhill after that.
I never heard about that one.
Well, you'll have to Google it and check it out.
Yeah, I remember the one with Dino Ciccarelli hitting a Leafs player, and I
Yeah,
think he went to jail for 3 days or something. But
yeah.
and the
No,
Wayne,
mine was an assault,
oh
as well. So
yeah, and Wayne Mackey one I heard about.
right,
That was I think in the late '60s. That was
yeah, that was quite a while ago.
with Ted Green. I think it was against.
Yeah,
Yeah, that one. The one that you had, I didn't hear about that. So yeah,
yeah.
that's today. That
Well,
would be an assault.
you'll check
Yeah,
it out, I'm sure.
yeah. Is so from what you still watch hockey today and
Oh yes, I'm still a fan, and I want the Red Wings to do well, and I have a residence in Calgary. I want the Flames to do well. Um, I don't go out of my way to go to games, but certainly I'm a sports fan. I watch football, I watch basketball, I watch baseball, I watch hockey.
And do you think the hockey, the way it's going right now with the new changes and the rules, do you like what's going on, or do you
Well,
prefer?
I like the fact that the players are supreme athletes now. Like I said, they train and
Yeah.
the skill set that they have now with the puck is amazing. And that what I think needs to happen though is I think they need to play on a bigger ice surface
So
a
like
little bit.
Europe, 100 by
Yeah,
200.
yeah. They have no room now. Like everything is, guys are blocking shots and getting their sticks in the way. And if they just had a little bit more room to make some nice fancy plays, I think it would be a better game.
I agree. That's in Sweden. It's a lot more skating, more open space, and you can make
Yeah,
greater plays.
they're so skilled now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But everything, like I said, if you ever sit or go to a game and go to ice level, there's just no room on the ice. I mean,
Yeah.
there's four officials and 6 players on each side.
Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah. But they're probably selling seats. If they expand it, they wouldn't be able to sell as many tickets. Is what they're. It's all about money.
The owners don't want to give up 1 or 2 rows of seats.
No, definitely not. Yeah. Yeah. Dennis, I want to thank you so much for coming on and talking to me. It's awesome. Thank you for making the time. It's awesome to have you on.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.